Fatal traffic incident on Welfare Road, Cole Bay. MP Egbert Doran outlined the situation in a Parliament meeting to Minister of Justice. Haiti to expire Feb 3, leaving hundreds of thousands in limbo. A former Illinois deputy is sentenced to 20 years in prison for killing Sonia Massey. From the island, Sint Maarten, this is SXM Daily News for January 29th, 2026. The police force of Sint Maarten, KPSM, is investigating a serious traffic incident that occurred in the early morning hours of Thursday, January 29th, 2026, which resulted in a fatality. At approximately 3:30 a.m., Central Police Dispatch received a report of a male individual lying on the roadway at a residence along the Welfare Road, near KFC in Cole Bay. The report indicated that the victim may have been struck by an unknown vehicle, which left the scene following the incident. Police patrols and ambulance personnel were immediately dispatched to the location. Upon arrival, officers encountered a male victim lying on the road and suffering from grave injuries. The victim was provided with emergency medical assistance at the scene by ambulance personnel and was subsequently transported in critical condition to the Sint Maarten Medical Center, SMMC. Later in the morning, police were officially notified by SMMC that the victim had succumbed to his injuries. The police force of Sint Maarten is requesting the public's cooperation in this investigation. Anyone who may have witnessed the incident, has information, dashcam footage, or any details that may assist the investigation is asked to come forward. Additionally, police are calling on the driver or rider who may have been involved in this incident to take responsibility and contact the authorities. Minister of Justice Natalie Tackling outlines the situation in a Parliament meeting, and instead, the decision was taken to focus on 2026 as a means to really develop and show the insurance coverage and have it apply to the realities of the ministry at the moment. At this time, we're focusing on exploring the options for establishing coverage in 2026 that will better meet the operational needs of the ministry, and that will adhere fully to financial and legal procedures, including proper tendering, and provide sustainable coverage for the frontline staff.
And this was the back and forth, and I know that we've spoken about it also here previously in Parliament, where there was an impasse between the governor and the ministry, and instead the decision was taken to focus on 2026 as a means to really develop and fine-tune the insurance coverage and have it apply to the realities of the ministry at the moment. So at this time, we're focusing on exploring the options for establishing coverage in 2026 that will better meet the operational needs of the ministry and that will adhere fully to financial and legal procedures, including proper tendering, and provide sustainable coverage for the frontline staff. Then I also want to show the difference, at least a little bit, in what we're working on currently with SOAB, because I've also received a letter, I think last week, Thursday or Friday, that we still have to respond to from the NAPB and WICSU, requesting clarification on what the process is going to be for the insurance, what the scope and coverage will be of the insurance. And again, I think what we need to explain is that legal right follows already from Chapter 10 of the Rechtspositiebesluit, but it only covers the staff that falls under there, KPSM, Brandrecherche, Border Control of IBPS. The decision taken by the Council of Ministers in 2022 was also that actually this coverage and the insurance coverage should stretch to all frontline personnel and no longer being, do I wear a uniform or do I not wear a uniform, but that we look at risk categories. So this means that the scope of the coverage will be expanded to include not only the personnel that are covered under the Rechtspositiebesluit Politie, but also frontline justice workers who are not formally included in that regulation, but perform critical frontline duties and that face similar risks as police officers. So, for example, we can think of our correction officers at YNES, judicial bailiffs, probation officers, and others exposed to occupational hazards. So for them, of course, we will also need to be covered in case of accidental death, dismemberment, disability. Then in preparation, what we're looking at currently and the process that is currently ongoing is one, defining the policy objectives and outlining why we are actually acquiring and procuring an insurance. Then we'll also be identifying and defining the group for which the insurance is being procured. So that means we need to define the term frontline worker within the context of the ministry and which functions fall within this category. Then we'll also be estimating and grouping the total number of frontline workers and the expected changes in this total during the contract period so that we can properly budget for that. Then we will also be conducting a risk and coverage analysis. So identify occupational risks specific to justice functions, such as physical assault, exposure to violent offenders, field operations, and travel. We'll be classifying the risks by frequency and severity where possible, analyzing whether we have had past incidents that have occurred and how often these previous insurances have been claimed in the years that we had an insurance in place. And of course, specifying the type of coverage and payout structures are required. And then with that, we also need to consider the requirements that are outlined in the Expositiebesluit-Politie, because there are specific amounts and things that are mentioned in there that we have to ensure, of course, that those are adequately covered within the framework of the law. And any other, legislation that we have in internal policies. And then with that, of course, determine what budget we will need in order to be able to cover that premium over time. So this, if we don't define all of these items, then of course we can't draft up proper terms of reference and we can't properly select the right insurance and qualify who and what will fall under that. Then I think with that, I've covered everything here when it comes to the insurance at least. So I don't know, Chair Lady, then if we're going to if I go through all the points that are on the agenda, or if we stop to discuss this particular one. I don't know what the format is.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister of Justice, for the information that you provided. And we have, yes, exactly. It's one agenda point, and with the different matters mentioned specifically. And you have just dealt with the part regarding the insurance primarily. I would suggest that you continue on the agenda point and then, provide all of the information, including the way it has been specified in the letter from the members. You may continue, yes, Minister.
Clear. Thank you very much. So again, I just want to reiterate once more with respect to the insurance, before we close off on this particular topic within the agenda point, is that we're not putting our justice workers at risk, that the government will at all times remain liable and responsible. And of course, I understand that individuals feel a lot safer knowing that there's an insurance that they can get money from instead of having to depend on government and liquidity if you have a claim that government has the money to be able to pay you out. So this is why also we're realistic in that fashion as well, and why we're focusing on putting a proper insurance in place so that everybody is clear on what the rights and responsibilities are, and that should a claim arise, that immediately that can be paid out by the insurance, as opposed to having to run behind government to get what's rightfully due to you. So again, that process is ongoing, but I see some discussion over here, but I'll get the questions after. Then I'll move on to the second point, which is protocols and scheduling of formal communications with unions. All formal communication between the Ministry of Justice and the unions is conducted through the Committee of Civil Servants Union, the CCSU, which is the established and recognized platform for structured, coordinated, and professional engagement. Several unions, including the ABVO, NAPB, and the WICSU, are represented within the CCSU. For this reason, holding individual meetings with separate unions is not preferred, as all unions should receive the same information at the same time when matters concern their members. Formal discussions are held during the CCSU meetings, which are convened as necessary based on the agenda and the status of the matter under consideration. A fixed or standing meeting schedule has not been established. Instead, updates are provided as progress is made, and this allows the CCSU to request clarification or to call a meeting at its discretion whenever it deems such engagement necessary. This structured approach ensures that all unions are engaged equitably and that discussions proceed in an organized and accountable manner. The ministry will continue to utilize the CCSU as the central forum for updates, consultations, and any additional meetings deemed necessary. Of course, in between, on an informal level or even a formal level, whenever letters are sent by the unions, these are responded to by the ministry, often within a couple of days if certain information is being requested. And at least I can speak at least for the WICSU, at least that the president of the WICSU has my number and reaches me at all times, and I immediately pick up the phone and respond to any questions or queries or concerns that they have. So that is definitely a working situation that works quite well. And again, any letters that are sent, we respond to those immediately as well.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social health insurances.
MP Egbert Doran. Posting a question to the Minister of Justice, I remember when the article came out right after the prison riots, and after they came over the article highlighting the dangers of the officers not being properly insured. We had a meeting here in Parliament. I believe it was the budget debate of 1925. The acting Minister of Justice, Minister Gums, mentioned. When I asked the question, I am insinuating that the officers don't have insurance and they have health insurance. And I specify I'm not talking about health insurance, I'm talking about coverage if something were to happen now in that same meeting.
Minister, I've noticed that you continue to repeat that they are already covered. When you talk about they, you talk about the justice workers, right? Just to go back in history a bit, I remember when the article came out right after the prison riots, NAPB came out with an article highlighting the dangers of the officers not being properly insured. We had a meeting here in Parliament, I believe it was the budget debate of 2025 when you were absent, and in your absence, the acting Minister of Justice, Minister Gums, mentioned, when I asked the question, that I am insinuating that the officers don't have insurance and they have health insurance. And I specify, I'm not talking about health insurance, I'm talking about coverage in the event that something would happen. Now, in that same meeting, in the clarification round, the minister came back and mentioned that all justice workers will be covered in the new policy that is being developed. Then last week, through you, Madam Chair, I heard in the press briefing you mentioned that, yes, they already have coverage, which was mentioned here, but I forget the term that you use, risk management tool. It will be used as a risk management tool. So am I to understand that they have insurance already, but we're going to get insurance by Nagico or any other company to be able to expedite payments? Because if that is the case, then we are unnecessarily wasting government money if they already have insurance. It's either they are insured or they are not insured. And just to go back in time a bit, this whole insurance situation came about a bit over 10 years ago with the whole murder of Officer Benjamin. And at the time, Minister Dennis Richardson brought it to the Council of Ministers in terms of getting getting coverage in the event that somebody would get hurt, damaged, or so on the job. So am I to understand through you, Madam Chair, to the Minister, all Ministers of Justice, including Dennis Richardson, Senator Dennis Richardson, and right up to even Anna Richardson and Lyndon Lewis were doing it the wrong way? Because if they have insurance already, there's no need to get new insurance or extra part of insurance. So I just need some clarity on that. And I don't think I'm the only one concerned about that point, because I got like 3 messages from different officers pointing to the same reference. So another question through you, Madam Chair. Can you explain, Minister, what a risk management tool is? And what is your understanding based on a risk management tool to manage the expectation? And for instance, God forbid, an officer would pass away in the line of duty today. How will they be compensated based on what you mentioned on different articles? And if they were to pass away with the insurance coverage that they had up to 2 years ago before it had to go for renewal, how would they have been compensated? I would like clear breakdowns in numbers. Madam Chair, through you to the Minister, would like to know, is the insurance coverage, the amount that is needed for the life insurance, is that in the 2026 budget that was, I'm thinking now, maybe submitted already? I heard that several cuts were needed. Was that one of the cuts? I would also like to know, through you, Madam Chair, where exactly is the ministry now with the placement process? Because a statement was publicly made that phase 1 of the placement process was complete. However, there are still workers that so-called part of the phase 1 still haven't received their national decrees. So where's the ministry now in that regard? Through you, Madam Chair, as I mentioned, the Nagico insurance policy was there for a reason. And if the minister is now saying that over the years we've paid this for no reason because it already had coverage, and now we're about to start a new insurance and pay it with already having coverage, I would really like some clarity on that, because in that case, then we could save money.
The Minister of Justice responded to MP Egbert Doran. Actually, is there insurance in place right now? No, there is not. There has not been insurance in place since 2022. That is the last time that there was an insurance package. So, as of January 2023, there was no longer any insurance for any justice workers. So since that time, we have been operating without insurance.
Is there an insurance in place right now? No, there is not. There has not been an insurance in place since 2022. That is the last time that there was an insurance package. So as of the January 1st, 2023, there was no longer any insurance for any justice workers. So since that time, we have been operating without an insurance. However, as I stated before, the right of the employee doesn't come from the insurance, it comes from the legislation, which says that that the government is responsible up to certain amounts if anything were to happen to you. And in that sense, MP Duran asked the question of, if something happens now, how much money is a person going to get? For that, I refer everybody to Articles 114 and 118 of the Besluit Rechtspositie KPSM. So, for example, to read here, it says, in the event of invalidity caused by dienstongeval or beroepsziekte, it says that de ambtenaar belast met de uitvoering van een politietaak, that you will get smarter geld up to a maximum of a net amount of 200,000 guilders. Then also they say if the person passes away, then their widow or their widower, as the case may be, gets also then a net payout by government of 100,000 guilders minus an amount mentioned somewhere else. In Article 118, there are percentages taken up where it has to do with how much you will be paid out in the event that you lose a leg, you lose a foot, you lose a hand. All of these are established in the legislation. So is there insurance in place right now? No, there is not. However, if something were to happen, God forbid, and I hope not, to anybody falling under this rechtspositie today, tomorrow, or anytime before there is an insurance in place, the government of St. Martin will be liable regardless of whether there is an insurance coverage, yes or no. And by law, the government will be liable up to the amounts listed in the legislation. So I hope that covers that question. So that is, the MP also asked me, can you explain what a risk management tool is? Again, just like your house, when you have hurricane insurance, you pay that premium because it's better that you pay the however much that premium is versus if your whole house blows away. Or even with car insurance, I can drive my car with or without insurance. It doesn't mean that I'm not liable or responsible for any damages that are caused. So in this case, that risk management tool is also something for government that, let's say, if, again, God forbid, I don't like to use these examples, but if a building were to collapse on a group of police officers all at one time and we have to pay out multiple families at once, at least we have as a risk management tool an insurance in place that would better enable the government to make those payments. So that's what I mean when I say it's a risk management tool. I think insurance is a risk management tool for everybody. We rather pay a health insurance coverage of, if it's a private insurance, $3,000 a year, because if something happens to you, that will cost you $100,000, at least the insurance will cover it. But either way, that's the way that we need to look at this in terms of that. So I will repeat again that right now, if something were to happen to a police officer, but equally to a civil servant under the LMA, there is also a duty of care for government that flows from the law, and the government will be responsible for the damages that this person has incurred. Then, the question was, is coverage needed, if the coverage needed is in the 2026 budget. There was a budget reservation in 2025, and there again is a budget reservation in 2026 to cover the cost of the insurance. However, this of course is based on the premium and the amounts that we had that was known to the government back in 2023. So of course we've taken up what we think it might be, but this is again why we have to work with SOAB in the coming months to define that scope to ensure that we actually have budgeted enough, or whether or not any budget amendments will be necessary to properly pay that premium and calculate that risk. So is it budgeted for 2026? Yes. Off the top of my head, it's an amount around close to 400,000 guilders.
The Hague. The Dutch state has failed to adequately protect the residents of Bonaire against the effects of climate change and has unjustifiably treated them differently from residents of the European Netherlands. That conclusion was reached on Wednesday by the District Court of The Hague in a landmark ruling in a case brought by Greenpeace against the Dutch state. The court found that this unequal and insufficient protection violates the European Convention on Human Rights, ECHR, and ordered the Dutch government to take far-reaching corrective action. Within 18 months, the state must enshrine binding interim greenhouse gas reduction targets for the entire economy in national legislation, and by 2030, it must have a fully developed and implemented plan to make Bonaire more resilient to climate change. Tourism economy Bonaire is home to approximately 26,000 people. Large parts of the island, particularly in the south, lie at or below sea level. This includes ecologically sensitive areas such as salt pans and mangrove forests in the southeast, which are highly vulnerable to flooding. Many residents of Bonaire live in poverty, limiting their ability to protect themselves from extreme weather and environmental degradation. The island's economy depends heavily on tourism, making it especially vulnerable to climate-related damage to natural ecosystems. Scientific research has consistently shown that small Caribbean islands are disproportionately exposed to the impacts of climate change. Their geographic location, small scale, limited economic diversification, and dependence on tourism and imports increase their vulnerability. These structural factors mean that climate shocks can have far-reaching social, economic, and environmental consequences in a relatively short time. Temporary Protected Status, TPS, for Haitian nationals living in the United States is scheduled to expire on February 3, 2026, raising concerns for hundreds of thousands of people who have relied on the humanitarian immigration program for years. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, announced in late 2025 that it would terminate Haiti's TPS designation, concluding that Haiti no longer meets the qualifications for the program and that allowing Haitian nationals to remain temporarily in the United States is contrary to the national interest. Under that decision, around 330,000 TARs, 350,000 Haitian nationals currently holding TPS are expected to lose their legal status and work authorization if they do not secure another lawful immigration status by the February deadline. A federal court, ruling in 2025, blocked an attempt by DHS to end the program early, keeping protections in place through February 3, 2026. Advocates and legal experts say those protections are now set to expire unless further legal action or policy changes occur. Community impact and responses. The looming expiration has already sparked fear and uncertainty within Haitian diaspora communities across the U.S. In South Florida, for example, many Haitian residents have expressed anxiety about losing legal status and being forced to choose between returning to Haiti, where violence and insecurity persist, or attempting to find alternative immigration pathways. Lawmakers have also raised alarms. In Massachusetts, U.S. Senator Ed Markey and Representative Ayanna Pressley criticized the move, warning that letting TPS lapse could disrupt families and undermine contributions by Haitian nationals working in essential sectors such as healthcare and elder care. Representative Pressley has pushed a discharge petition in the U.S. House of Representatives aimed at forcing a floor vote on legislation to extend TPS for Haitian nationals for 3 years, arguing that Congress should act if the executive branch does not. Legal and policy context, TPS is a form of humanitarian relief that allows nationals of designated countries to live and work in the United States when their home countries are experiencing conditions that make safe return impossible. Ending the program means TPS holders would lose their protection from deportation and their right to work unless they qualify for another form of status, such as asylum, family-based visas, or employment-based immigration categories. The DHS notice to the Federal Register makes the February 3, 2026 termination date official, and legal experts say Haitian TPS holders should begin planning for possible changes now, including checking eligibility for other immigration options or seeking legal assistance.
Now for the weather forecast tonight through Friday evening. Fair to partly cloudy with brief local showers are possible. Surface winds tonight through Friday evening. Southeasterly with a light to gentle breeze at 4 to 12 mph, becoming lighter and variable at times. State of the sea. Gentle to moderate waves, swells, 2 to 5 feet. Outlook through Friday evening, fair to partly cloudy with brief local showers possible. And now your 3-day forecast.
SXM, your social and health insurance. SXM, your social and health insurance.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, your social and health insurance.
Springfield, Illinois. AP News. A former Illinois sheriff's deputy was sentenced Thursday to 20 years in prison for fatally shooting Sonia Massey, who had dialed 911 to report a possible prowler outside her Springfield home. Sean Grayson, 31, was convicted in October in a police brutality case that prompted protests over systemic racism and led to a U.S. Department of Justice inquiry. Grayson, who is white, received the maximum possible sentence. He has been incarcerated since he was charged in the killing. He apologized during the sentencing, saying he wished he could bring Massey back and spare her family the pain he caused. His attorney had asked for a sentence of 6 years, noting that Grayson has late-stage colon cancer that has spread to his liver and lungs. I made a lot of mistakes that night. There were points when I should have acted, and I didn't. I froze, he said during the hearing. I made terrible decisions that night. I'm sorry. Massey's parents and 2 children, who lobbied for the maximum sentence, said their lives had changed dramatically since the killing. Her 2 children said they had to grow up without a mother, while Massey's mother said she lived in fear. They asked the judge to carry out justice in her name. Today, I'm afraid to call the police in fear that I might end up like Sonia, her mother, Donna Massey, said during the hearing. It rocked the country. Grayson's attorneys had pushed for a new trial, which Judge Ryan Cadigan dismissed at the start of the hearing. In calling for the maximum prison term, State's Attorney John Milhiser argued that Massey would still be alive if the police department had sent someone else to respond. Sonia Massey's death rocked her family, but it rocked the community. It rocked the country, State's Attorney John Milhiser said. We have to do whatever we can to ensure it never happens again. When the judge read the sentence, the family reacted with a loud cheer. Yes, the judge admonished them. After the hearing, Massey's relatives thanked the public for the support and listening to their stories about Massey. 20 years is not enough, her daughter Summer told reporters the day of the shooting. In the early morning hours of July 6, 2024, Massey, who struggled with mental health issues, summoned emergency responders because she feared there was a prowler outside her Springfield home. According to body camera footage, Grayson and Sheriff's Deputy Dawson Farley, who was not charged, searched Massey's yard before meeting her at her door. Massey appeared confused and repeatedly said, "Please, God." The deputies entered her house. Grayson noticed the pot on the stove and ordered Farley to move it. Instead, Massey went to the stove, retrieved the pot, and teased Grayson for moving away from the hot, steaming water. From this moment, the exchange quickly escalated. Massey said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." This is our SXM Daily Newscast. Thank you for joining us.